how to successfully plan your first Camino. Hi everybody, I'm Peter and I'm an expat Kiwi. Let's get straight into it. In terms of planning, it comes down to a number of factors. The most important one being, what kind of person are you? Are you somebody that likes to plan every detail, to research everything, or are you somebody that pretty much likes to fly by the seat of your pants? If you're the latter, you're probably not even watching this, but just in case you are, two things I'd encourage you to do. Logically, figure out roughly how much time you're going to need, book your first night's accommodation, so day 0 in other words, your night of arrival, and your last night's accommodation in Santiago, should that be necessary. If you've got a late flight out, you may not need to worry about that. Other than that, go for it. Hope this has helped. Okay, for everybody else, how do I plan? Well, some of us are old school and we like to use a good old-fashioned map. Yeah, that works for some. Doesn't help with accommodation and so forth, but there are other ways you can get that information. Others like to use a guidebook. Personally, I found these village-to-village guides really useful for the Camino Primitivo. I did leave it at home when I left because I had everything already either written down or the important facets photographed and kept on my phone. Talking of writing down, that's how I planned my Camino Inglés. I didn't have a guidebook. I didn't use an app or a map or anything else. How did I get my information? I watched YouTube videos just like you're watching this one now. That said, rather than watch 3 or 4 different people's videos trying to get some idea as to how far they walked in a day, whether you think you're up to that or not, and then writing down every little bit of information, as I did, you could use an app. Plenty of them out there. The most common ones that are used by pilgrims are Grons, which is a Spanish one, exceptionally good, and your phone will probably just automatically translate it for you. Wise Pilgrim and Buen Camino. All 3 of those are brilliant for planning purposes. They show you elevation, distances, albergues and other forms of accommodation, etc. along the way. So these elements are out of the way. You've got an idea as to how you're going to plan it. What other things do you need to consider? Logically, how long is the Camino and how far can you walk in any given day? That's going to give you the time frame. The next step, consider starting slow. You know your night of arrival. Try and make the first day a little bit shorter than you think that you're comfortable with doing. So if you're comfortable doing 20 kilometers, look at doing 15 on that first day, something along those lines. You don't want to push yourself too far, too fast. I strongly encourage everybody, as I've already said, to book their very first night, the night of arrival, and it's not a bad idea to book your first day going ahead. Whether you should book or not beyond the first night of your Camino is very individual. I've done a separate video of the pros and cons. I'll put the link down below. 2 final factors for you to give serious consideration to. Firstly, is there anything in particular you really want to see along the Camino? Whether that be sightseeing or a special event. I've actually heard of some people even including a concert while they're on Camino. Each to their own, right? While some sites can be seen in just a couple of hours, others might warrant a full day. So just take that into consideration when you're planning. The final point, rest days. It should be nearer the top of the list, quite frankly, but it really depends on the length of the Camino. On that side of things, put in a rest day every 7 to 10 days. So if you're walking for 30 days, you would be looking at 3 or 4 rest days pretty much as a minimum. You don't have to take your rest days. Let's face it, if you're not feeling like you need them, don't bother. But you might choose to walk 3 or 4 shorter days instead and add an extra day or 2 that way. The other alternative, of course, is to use them at the end. If you hadn't originally planned to walk to Finisterre but end up with 4 days free, why not? Go for it. If you've only got 1 or 2 days extra, Rather than staying in Santiago, you could always head to the coast. A Corona, for example, is only, I think, half an hour, 45 minutes away by train. Nice little seaside town. It's got pohutukawa trees too. It's something you really want to see if they're in bloom. The only other way you're going to see those is heading all the way down to New Zealand, because guess what? They're a New Zealand native. All right, everybody. As always, thank you very much for watching. I hope this has been helpful. Buen Camino.